enforce the Araki-Lee inequality, the fact that B is bounded by SL plus SR. This result that I reviewed, or this wrong result, which violated Araki-Lee, is what comes from focusing only on this branch of the RT, or this RT surface. The fact that it becomes non-minimal. This is really, really crazy. This is saying that the entanglement wedge of the path reaches all the way and includes this light blue region of the JT brane. This light blue region in this 1 plus 1 dimensional space corresponds to a region that contains the black hole interior. So this says that the black hole interior is dual to the path. This realizes ER equals EPR. Now, unfortunately, this doesn't realize the octopus spacetime, but as Steven Shenker said, now we have a nice single fillet of salmon. Okay, so the punchline is we managed to obtain a page curve for both the evaporating black hole and for the radiation. And in some sense, we also found, or we in some sense pinned down, quote-unquote, Hawking's mistake, which is that he didn't know about the minimality condition of the RT formula, but also he didn't know about the RT formula. Also, just before I go to the question and answer period, somebody should ask me about pure states. Thank you. Chris was talking.
In my review talk, I promised everybody that the quantum extremal surface would lie behind the event horizon, and as seen in pretty much any one of your other slides, here it does not. So I was thinking throughout your talk, why does this happen? And I think it has to do with this shock where you couple the boundary to this other system, and it emits a pulse of negative energy. I'm pretty sure that that pulse of negative energy will cause the generalized second law to no longer be true on the causal horizon. That's the uppermost, that thing there.
That's not the horizon. The horizon is here. That's just the extension of the past horizon from the left.
Well, so the one on the left is the boundary of what the observer can see, who stays in the original space-time, maybe? I'm not saying you necessarily have a contradiction here. That's certainly, the fact that that dashed line that does not satisfy the generalized second law is why you violated that theorem. But do you have a comment on what you think the moral of that is?
I'm not sure I understood, but let me correct something. I think you said that this yellow line has negative energy. Did you say that?
I thought you said that.
No, it has positive energy.
It has positive energy.
Yes. But there's negative energy that falls in because the fact that you have the vacuum in the bath, that translates in the book to having negative energy falling in. And the interpretation of that is simply that the black hole is evaporating. But the Hawking radiation coming out of the past singularity is not being reflected off the boundary and falling in, but rather just going into the bath. That absence of the positive energy is that negative energy.
There are situations where you can violate the generalized second law because you take your slice you're evaluating S out on to only go with finite distance instead of all the way to the edge. It's probably related to that.
Okay.
I'm very confused by your talk, so maybe my question is off base, but the model at root is not so different from the models looked at 30 years ago by CGHS and the variance. Very, very careful calculation was done of the entanglement in the radiation outside when, say, you threw in a pure state or something, and one found that you could have an arbitrary increase in the information loss. What's different in this model that's allowing you to avoid that conclusion?
You didn't use the RT formula. So here's the trick that we're using. So let me go back first. So this represents what you guys found. The entropy of the Hawking radiation, or the bath in my case, simply increases and you have information loss. Yeah, the kind of calculation we did here is identical to the kind of calculation that you did. But now I'm proposing a different calculation, which is using this 2 plus 1 dimensional bulk. The formula that we use to compute the entropy of the bath is not the standard CFD formula. We're using the RT formula in the 2 plus 1 dimensional bulk.
But, okay, then we should continue. But you are taking the same 1 plus 1D theory, right?
Yes.
So, do you mean to say the RT formula doesn't agree with Cardy's formula in a 1 plus 1D CFD? Because that's what one used in the original calculation.
Yeah. What this is saying is that when you have, when gravity's in the game, you need a new set of rules. And the new rule here is that you need to use the RT formula. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, just to make sure, this 1 plus 1D theory is not reversible.
Maybe that's an interpretation.
I think that's the reason for it. I mean, 2 plus 1 is reversible, but it's just any, that's why it's not equation rules.
So in the later part of your talk, so are you putting the dual of JT gravity on the boundary of holographic to the BCFT?
Sorry, the dual of JT, can you say that again?
So what is I wonder what is the boundary configuration?
The boundary configuration?
Yeah. Where is the dual of JT gravity?
It's these blue dots.
So is it the boundary of 2D holographic boundary CFT?
Yes, it is where the boundary of so there's a 2D CFD living here, and we have these two quantum mechanical systems which live on the boundaries of the 2D CFD.
shadow phrase, right?
Well, sorry. Entanglement shadow just, I just meant in the sense that it cannot be reconstructed from any single region individually. Maybe, that was the definition I gave for shadow, but maybe there's a...
No, I mean, in classical description of entanglement ranges, in semi-classical description, there is no such thing as an entanglement shadow because once you're given a pure state of a combined system, if you have a HRD surface, then the entanglement range is the region of the combined. That gives a complete factorization of the full space, and there's no path missing except for the future path to the HRD surface.
Yes, I think you're just saying that if I have the entire system, then I know what's inside this entanglement shadow. Yeah, I completely agree, of course. Yeah.
Let's take one more question. Dan.
So I already asked you about pure states before, so I'm going to ask you about something different. So this bulk theory of Jakub tidal volume coupled to a holographic CFT, is this supposed to be a UV complete description all by itself? If the answer is yes, then I don't see why we should think of it as being holographic and dual to these two separate boundaries. We should just be able to compute everything directly in this bulk description, and then I think as Sandeep was saying, it seems like there should be information loss. So I think probably for this calculation to be justified, it somehow must be the case that this bulk description isn't really the right thing, right? Like the right thing is this holographic, something like SYK with a fixed instance or something, where we view the JT coupled to matter as only an effective description that has to be UV completed into the CFT. So do you agree with that, or what do you say about that?
I would say that within the UV complete theory of JT plus CFT, perhaps there's a new set of rules that we just have not uncovered yet that will give us the right answer.
But then it's just information loss, right?
No.
It's not effective field theory. So it must.
No, it's information loss if you use the standard. If you.
But to be clear, like for example, if you just forget about the matter, just do a Jakub tidal volume, right? So then that theory, can be exactly solved either in the way that Jefferson and I did, or in the way that Steve Schenker talked about in his talk. In either way, it doesn't have a holographic dual, right? It's not dual to two quantum mechanics living on those endpoints. So when you assume that, you're somehow assuming that the bulk description is not really the right one.
But ultimately, we consider this model not because it's UV complete or anything like that. It's just that we can do the calculations.
Yeah.
So.
In a sense, I'm continuing your previous question, because JT theory has a limited range of validity. When you read, you showed nicely that you satisfied the Archimedean bound if you were not too far from extremality, but then you ran into trouble if you were farther. I was expecting you to say at that point that there's a limitation on the validity of the JT theory, and it's only good if the non-extreme entropy is sufficiently small compared to the extreme entropy. I don't have a technical reason for that, but I expected that to be the situation.
No, thank you for that comment. So, this is not necessary. So, you can run into a problem not by just increasing ES to be very, very large, but you can continuously feed the black hole with small bits of energy. So you throw some ES, which is small, but the black hole to evaporate, then you throw another shock, and you wait, and so on and so forth, and you would end up with the same conclusion. All the meanwhile, you're within the approximation where the near extremal entropy is small.
Okay, I think before we thank Ahmed again, I'd like to just ask you to remain seated for a short announcement. So let's thank Ahmed.
So thanks very much, Matthias, and thanks to the organizers for putting together this conference and for inviting me as well. So my talk is kind of a continuation of what you've heard this morning from Steve Schenker, who reported on JT gravity as a matrix integral. So I'll describe an extension of this work with Douglas Stanford. The paper is on the archive, although I didn't have the number when I was making the slides. So we generalized the story you heard about this morning in a few directions, to include time reversal symmetry, fermions, and n=1 supersymmetry. Now, in general, in holographic duality, you describe a boundary theory on a manifold X via a bulk theory on a manifold Y whose boundary is X. So the basic picture is this one. There's a boundary where the quantum mechanics lives, and there's some kind of bulk spacetime. And given X, you sum over all the Y's allowed by general principles. So in the situation of this morning, no symmetry was assumed. So in particular, there was no time reversal symmetry assumed. No symmetry except time translation symmetry generated by Hamiltonian. So that meant that X was oriented and also Y is oriented. The theory on X was assumed to be a random remission matrix theory. And the theory on Y was what's arguably the simplest possible model of gravity in two dimensions, or really in any dimension, which is JT gravity. Where topological is the Euler characteristic term that's related in string theory to the string Copley constant. Now what's fascinating about the story we heard this morning is that apparently a true quantum mechanical system on the boundary, like the SYK model, is told to something complicated that we don't understand in detail. While a simple bulk system, namely this, is told to an average of quantum systems, not to a specific bona fide quantum system. So this sentence is a piece of what Steve Schenker explained this morning, and I think it's quite interesting. So it's actually what fascinates me about the topic. But unfortunately, I don't have anything to tell you that continues this line of thought. What I have to offer are only technical extensions of what you heard about this morning. So a simple correspondence of JT gravity with a random matrix is possible in part because JT gravity is very simple. So, as Steve in part explained, part of the simplicity is that JT gravity is one loop exact. And that's because if you take this integral and integrate over phi, you'll get a delta function saying that r plus 2 is 0. In other words, you localize on metrics of constant scalar curvature r equals minus 2. And that's a finite dimensional moduli space equivalent to the moduli space of Riemann surfaces. So you localize on the locus of this delta function, and then to get integral. However, in the work you heard about this morning, it's important that on an orientable surface, JT gravity is not just one loop exact, but tree level exact, in the sense that the one loop correction is trivial. In other words, the product of determinants that multiplies the delta functions is actually 1. So everything reduces to computing volumes of moduli spaces, where the volumes are defined by classical formulas with no one loop correction. So we'll get back to how there can be a correction in a second. Now, in traditional random, I also want to tell you why it's natural to consider time reversal symmetry. So in the traditional random matrix theory of Wigner and others, unitary symmetries are not very important, but time reversal symmetry is important. The reason is the following. Suppose you have a unitary symmetry, for example, a symmetry G whose square is 1. Then you just diagonalize G, so it's 1 in one block and minus 1 in another block. And in a G-invariant theory, the Hamiltonian will be block diagonal on the same basis. And random matrix theory would suggest that the two blocks are independent random matrices. So you just do ordinary random matrix theory, as if there were no symmetry, except you do it twice, once in each block. So in that sense, having symmetry doesn't add much. Time reversal symmetry is different because it acts inside a single block and changes the nature of the block. So there are two t-invariant Dyson ensembles, depending on whether t squared is 1 or minus 1. If you assume the t squared is 1, then the symmetry of an L-dimensional Hilbert space is reduced from UL to OL, and the Hamiltonian becomes a real symmetric matrix. If t squared is minus 1, the symmetry is reduced to a symplectic group, and the Hamiltonian is an antisymmetric tensor of that group. So in all, there are three traditional Dyson ensembles in random matrix theory. There's the one that figured this morning, an L by L Hermitian matrix with unitary symmetry. If you assume time reversal symmetry, then there are two other ensembles, one with orthogonal symmetry, one with symplectic symmetry. In each case, the Hamiltonian is considered as a random matrix with a distribution of this form with a suitable function f, where if you're only interested in short-range correlations among eigenfunctions, the precise function f doesn't matter very much, so Wigner, Dyson, and Mate generally assumed a Gaussian function. F was quadratic. So in nuclear physics, there is time reversal symmetry. So the ensemble important in nuclear physics is the second one. Now, each of the three ensembles can be related to two-dimensional geometry by expanding the path integral in perturbation theory and following Hooft's construction, in which a propagator is taken as a thin ribbon with the initial and final index of the matrix on the edges of the ribbon. The only difference is that for a Hermitian matrix, you get orientable two-manifolds only, but in the other cases, you get unorientable two-manifolds. So that's because for the t-invariant ensembles, the propagator has a twisted term. So writing Hij and HKL for matrix elements of the Hamiltonian H, the two-point function of the matrix element of H for one of the t-invariant ensembles looks like that, with a plus or minus sign, depending on whether the symmetry is orthogonal or symplectic. Whereas for a unitary symmetry, we have only the first term, no second term. So if you make a one-loop diagram where you have a scalar particle representing the propagation of the matrix running around in a loop, then Hooft tells you to turn the loop into a thin ribbon. But the ribbon is either twisted or untwisted when you go around. So in one case, the ribbon is an annulus, the other one is a Mobius strip. Familiar world chains in open string theory. If you want to follow Hooft and make a two-manifold by gluing in a disk to each index loop, on the left, there are two index loops. So you glue in two disks, one inside and one outside. But on the right, since it's a Mobius strip, there's one boundary, you glue in only one disk. So on the left, you get an orientable surface of Euler characteristic 2, which is a two-sphere. On the right, you get a surface of Euler characteristic 1, which is a copy of RP2, or a cross-cap, this is often called informally. So the Euler characteristic is just the number of, in general, it's just the number of disks that you glue in. So it's 2 or 1 in these two cases. So here, you get a factor of L for each of two index loops, L squared. Here you get a single factor of L. So RP2 is of some leading in the 1 over L expansion. It's of order L instead of L squared. Now, the twisted diagram will get a plus or minus sign because of the sign in the propagator. So you learn that the contribution of a 2 geometry with the topology of RP2 to the path integral has a sign that's different for the two Dyson ensembles. So you learn, at least in this example, that the two Dyson ensembles differ by whether, in the sum over two geometries, you should weight a cross-cap with a minus sign. And that's actually true to all orders. And the t-invariant ensembles were related to orientable two geometries in early papers. So if you're familiar with what happens with orthogonal and symplectic time factors in open string theory, you might not find this surprising. So orthogonal and symplectic symmetry for open strings has to do with the sign of the orientable operation that exchanges the two ends of the string. So it goes into the sign of the Mobius strip amplitude. So orthogonal and symplectic symmetry have to do in open string theory with the sign of this amplitude, analogously to what I told you in the context of the matrix model. So to do JT gravity with time reversal symmetry, we'd like to compare JT gravity on a possibly unorientable surface to the t-invariant Dyson ensembles with orthogonal or symplectic symmetry. Now here we run into something to the following fact. On an unorientable two-manifold, JT gravity is still one-loop exact, because the integral over phi always gives a delta function corresponding to one-loop exactness, but it's no longer tree-level exact. So on an unorientable spacetime, you have to calculate a one-loop correction. And the methods involved in computing it are interesting, and could have certainly filmed this lecture, but today I'll just state what the answer is. So, first of all, I'll say it in an orientable case and then compare it to the unorientable case. So, solutions of JT gravity are hyperbolic surfaces, which are two manifolds with constant negative curvature. And you can build such surfaces by gluing together three-hole spheres. So here's a genus 2 surface, built by gluing together two pieces, each of which is a three-hole sphere. The moduli you can always associate to the circles in which you glue. So each circle has a circumference, which is a length parameter, but there's also a twist parameter rho, because you can twist one side by an angle, roughly rho, before gluing it onto the other side. So whenever you glue along a two-hole sphere, you have a length parameter and a twist parameter. And in the orientable case, the measurement moduli space that comes from JT gravity is a classical expression that you can read off of the classical action at tree level. In the unorientable case, you can still make a hyperbolic two-manifold by gluing simple building blocks, but you have to allow a new kind of building block in which one or two of the boundaries is closed off by a crosscut. So this is a three-hole sphere, where in one of the holes I identify opposite points. So it's not really a boundary anymore. I glue opposite points together, so it's closed off in what's called a crosscut. This circle still has a length parameter A, its circumference, but there's no gluing parameter because it's not going to be glued onto anything. It doesn't have a boundary that could be glued onto anything. So when you glue together three-hole spheres, some of which end on crosscuts and some with their boundaries, you find that the measure one moduli space that comes from JT gravity is this one, where when you glue in a circle, you have a pair of length twist parameters, but for every crosscut, you have a length with no twist. And the appropriate measure, including a one-loop factor, is this one, where this factor depends on the one-loop correction. So if you try to integrate this measure, you actually run into a divergence, because it goes as dA over A for small a. So JT gravity on an unorientable two-manifold has a path integral that actually diverges. Now, in comparing to the matrix model, as in this morning's lecture, it's most straightforward to consider not a closed two-manifold, but a two-manifold with trumpets glued on. So, for example, this here, you imagine this is a boundary far away in an asymptotically ADS2 space. So, it's cut off in a way that Steve very briefly sketched this morning. So we have a two-manifold that ends on a boundary. And along the outer boundary of the trumpet, there propagates a Schwarzian mode, familiar from the S1K model. And the path integral of the Schwarzian gives a density of states. That isn't a sum of delta functions. That's why T-gravity isn't dual to an honest quantum mechanical system. The path integral of the Schwarzian, if you try to associate it with a density of states, you get a continuous function, a smooth function, not a sum of delta functions. But to the extent that this constant, which is the ground state entropy, is large, it's a very large smooth density. So unless you look, if it had been approximated by a sum of delta functions, it would be a very dense distribution of delta functions. Unless you look at the very fine details, it's difficult to distinguish this large smooth function from a large, very densely spaced function of delta functions. So the fact that it's smooth is why a theory related to the Schwarzian isn't dual to a single quantum mechanical system. Instead, in the work of Saad-Checker and Stanford, this function was interpreted as the average density of states of a random matrix, rather than as the density of states of a particular matrix. So the JT path integral is supposed to compute a contribution to a correlator of matrix partition functions, trace e to the minus beta h, or equivalently, except you can't see it there, matrix resultants, trace of 1 over x minus h. So to check whether it still works with T invariants, we want to compare the 1 over L or e to the minus s expansion of a matrix integral for a T invariant ensemble to the JT path integral on an unorientable two-manifold. So the leading contribution just comes from a trumpet with a crosscut glued in. So you take a trumpet, which has an outer boundary with the Schwarzian mode, and an inner boundary, which in this morning's lecture would get glued onto something else, maybe a second trumpet. Instead, we just identify opposite sides of the inner boundary, so there's in fact no boundary. And that's the leading order of topology by which the T invariant ensemble, or T invariant JT gravity, differs from ordinary JT gravity. So you can work out that the JT path integral in this manifold, where beta is the regularized diameter of the boundary infinity,